Today we're having a discussion surrounding real estate. I'm here with Bard, a valued client of Nomad Elite, and also a friend of ours. And we're going to be talking about the laws surrounding real estate in Poland, Spain, and we're also going to be comparing it to Paraguay here and whether it makes sense to invest in real estate in the 21st century. Now, when we talked about this privately, you mentioned how things are changing in Poland. There used to be the concept of flippers in Poland, people who bought condominiums, apartments, and they split them up into smaller units, right? Into smaller apartments. And you told me just now that this concept is no longer as popular. What happened exactly in Poland?
So this concept still exists, but the problem is that there need to be government support to get a mortgage. Without this concept won't work. And because now there are no any substitute programs from the government side, and some people are waiting for it because it is like it was present for many years. So many people still hope that it will be when they want to buy a flat. So now they are postponing this decision. But there's also other side where people are very against of this substitution because this raises prices of apartments. And now without this program, the prices of flats start dropping step by step. It's like a 10-15% or year to year in the big cities. So it's not that bad. And in some places, even it's like a 30%, so it is worth. So all the prices seem to be like a bubble, just pumped by these government subsidies. So yeah, this flipper, I mean, in principles, it's not the bad thing, because we have quite a lot of old apartments, even from in my city, from the time where it was a German city. And apartments like 100 square meters. Yeah, so it can be easily divided by two, renovated, and sold as a two separate units. The problem is that it went to extreme where these flippers buy a flat like 40 or 50 meters and they divide it in two smaller apartments as well. And the smallest, they cannot be called apartment, but the smallest one are like a 10 square meters. So it's really insane. Yeah, and that's what make people mad because young people cannot afford a new apartments. They cannot leave the parents. They have to live with them. Yeah, so that's how this concept. I mean, it exists, but it's not getting better at this point, which is, I think, overall good.
Living space needs are going down. People are having fewer and fewer children than ever before. Like the birth rate in Poland is as low as it's ever been. And that's a very, very prominent picture across the Western Hemisphere. So we also talked about whether it's a necessity to own a home these days. Someone like you who is very nomadic and you are free to go wherever you want. You did mention that you own real estate in Poland yourself and it's fully paid off, right? You don't have a mortgage to pay, you own the property, and until you haven't paid off your mortgage, you don't really own the real estate. You have equity, right? In your case, you have 100% equity because you paid everything. Something that we also touched on before privately is how owning real estate in Spain is an incredible liability in the 21st century because of the Ocupas law that came into effect. I don't know the year, but it's been a long time ago, way longer than 10 years. And I've also told you privately how I have owned real estate in Spain and I now sold it for the simple reason that I'm not there as much as I used to be. And like you also pointed out privately, you always need to have someone to look after the property. And in Spain, you really cannot have the property empty for more than 48 hours. If someone comes in and occupies the home for more than 48 hours, from a legal perspective, even though the act is illegal, it's illegal, right? You break into someone's home, you occupy, that's technically breaking the law. However, in Spanish terms, it is a legalized term, right? So you can do it, it's legal. Whether you own the property or whether you have multiple owners, right? You have it owned with maybe your spouse, they own it, or family, whoever. It doesn't matter. If someone comes into your property, occupies it for more than 48 hours, from a legal perspective, you can't kick him out unless you go through court and you get the court order to get him out of your apartment. Now picture this, you own an apartment in Spain or a house, and I had seen some of the highest statistics in southern Spain. Alicante, for instance, I've seen a lot there. Now, obviously, homeowners are a lot more wary of this, because this is something, you can save up your entire life pay for the property, technically own it. Somebody comes in, say they have a family, they have children. Technically, they could occupy the home for years or more than a decade before you can get them out. So you have your capital locked up. You can't sell the property. You can't get them out. You can't use it yourself anymore because someone's living in it. I mean, and this is Spain, right? And similar laws exist in other EU countries too. They're just less prominent. Why? Spain is probably, I'd say, the most visited country for tourism in whole Europe. You know, Italy used to be a lot more popular, and like 20 years ago, Greece used to be more popular than it is now. And now the trend that we're seeing is that a lot of people are very concerned about buying property in Spain. Like second homes are a great risk. Now, if it's your primary residency, it's going to be much harder for an occupier to take possession of it because it's your primary residency.
Yeah.
And if that's in Spain and you pay your taxes in Spain, you will get them out quickly. So the main problem with this law and the people who are most affected by it are people with second residencies who don't live there permanently, for instance, or if it's an investment property, right? So that's something to be aware of because I had a second home there and I rented it out. I had very bad experience, and then I just used it myself for some time throughout the year, and then it was just empty. So there was no need to keep it. You know, it has gone up in value, so I sold it at a profit, which is great. But for owning real estate, the European Union is no longer a good place for that because the laws are constructed in a way to protect tenants over landlords these days. In the US too, in certain left-wing states, that's more prominent than before. In right-wing states, it's not. So you really have to look at the laws and make sure you are getting what you think you're getting. Let's talk about real estate in Paraguay. You told me that you're not sure whether you want to buy real estate here or whether you want to buy in general, right? You pointed it out. Now here, the market can be crazy too. Like here you can find real estate that's incredibly overvalued. And I talked about this in other videos too, how $3,000 to $4,000 a square meter is ridiculous. You never want to buy that. You're not going to get your money back. You're not going to get your money back, right? Unless you want to live here and die here and you really want to live in this property and you love it to death, go buy it. But for an investment, from an investment perspective, you're not going to get like double or triple your money. That's not going to happen. No matter how much inflation there is. I mean, unless there's inflation like in Argentina maybe, right? But no. Here you want to buy into reasonably priced properties, starting at maybe like $700-800 a square meter if you're looking at buying apartments. And a lot of money moved in here over the past 5 to 10 years. First, money from Argentina moved in a lot because people were looking to get out of the Argentine peso, and real estate is a great store of value. It's a much better store of value today than holding Argentine peso, without a doubt. So a lot of Argentine money flew into Paraguay, also from Brazil because they have their own individual problems there. Then during the past health crisis, a lot of money from Germany moved in here. A lot of Germans bought real estate here, right? They bought land, houses, apartments. So because of this mass influx of foreign money into Paraguay, real estate prices have really gone up a lot. You can still find good deals now, but you have to be a lot more, not careful, but a lot more strategic about it where you buy, because there are a lot of overvalued properties here. Before, like 5 years, it was a lot easier to make money in this market than it is now. So if you want to buy reasonably priced real estate here, you want to go into areas that are a little bit further outside, but still within nice proximity to the major malls, because that's what people always want. With good roads, you know, where there's schools nearby, supermarkets, education, you know, that's the kind of setup you want. But you tell me about your opinion. Is it worth investing in real estate here? Are you looking to buy yourself? And by the way, Bard is a 42-year-old European Union citizen, right? So you made your money in business, right? You have your company, you made your money in business, and you own real estate back in Poland, and you want to keep that for obvious reasons that you pointed out. Now talk to us about the potential of owning real estate here. How do you feel about that?
Thanks for mentioning my age. But yeah, at this point, I'm not looking for any apartment to buy here. There are many reasons. You mentioned about the Germans and about Brazilians and Argentinians that they buy houses. I've also heard some stories that crypto guys they buy apartments here as well as a storage. They need to somehow how to call it.
They need to preserve their capital.
They need to legalize this money.
That too.
They need to legalize this money, and Paraguay is very open for such things. No one really asks for where this money comes from. as far as I know. So this procedure is pretty common. But the other thing, I've seen a bunch of apartments, not many, like a handful, let's say, of apartments, and the quality of those apartments is far from European standards. So if I would like to buy an apartment or flat, I would really need to check how it was done. For example, electricity over here is just 2 wires. In Europe, there have to be at least 3. I mean, not at least, there are 3 wires, just to make sure that the whole electricity is safe for people. Here, it makes sense here because it's cheaper to make these 2 wires. So there is no law that enforces electric companies or constructions to make them free. But still, there are consequences of it. Yeah? So if you buy a new apartment, you need to check electricity, how it looks like. And it's more likely that it's far from European standards. So if I would like to buy, for sure not Asunción. It's a nice city for me. I like to walk over the city. There are many places. But for retirement, no. I mean, it doesn't offer that much as what I can see from some other videos and talking to people. The smaller cities or villages that are not far, but like an hour, maybe an hour and a half from Asunción, way smaller, way more quiet, with relatively good infrastructure, good enough, let's say, for the age of retirement, and with way lower prices. You can buy a house for a price of car. So that's what makes sense. Buying an apartment without a garden, with such nice weather, doesn't make sense. That's from my perspective. I mean, everyone has a different situation, different context, different point of view. That's mine.
Oh yeah. And if you go further outside the city, you can buy land for your house for a few $1,000s. You're not gonna have to pay 30 to 50,000 for the land your house is built on, or over 100,000. Like here in the top neighborhoods, if you want to have like an average home, the land now will probably cost you over $100,000.
Yeah,
so
there's also a trick with buying property over here. That's what I know. That even if someone claims that he owns this property, it doesn't mean that he owns this. You need to be very careful and check. As far as I know, there is no Paraguayans, I don't know how they call it, the lease of the land. I mean, who owns which property? It has some name. So there is no easy way to verify who really owns the property, and you need good lawyer or someone who take care of it for you from Paraguay and knows how to verify in a different registers or wherever. If you are really buying this apartment or piece of land from the real owner, not from just someone who claims that it owns.
Yeah, you always have to verify before you buy. And another thing you have to be mindful about is multiple owners. Sometimes a home is owned by multiple people.
Yeah.
One person wants to sell it, the other person doesn't, right? So everyone has to be in alignment with selling the property, or the sale may not be legal. But you did make a good point about how certain properties may not be owned by the person who claims to own them. Right? So you have to do your due diligence here, but also in other countries, but that's definitely accurate. I think if you want to get good return on your investment here, you probably want to purchase land, or you want to invest in tier 2 cities and not in the new Asunción. The new Asunción is, in my opinion, it's inflated. The real estate market is inflated here. You can find decent properties here at a good price, but you're not going to get double, triple, or quadruple your money here in the next 3 to 10 years, right? If you would have bought 10 years ago, yeah, very, very good chances, right? But now you have to look into the smaller cities where they're building schools, infrastructure is happening, right? That's where you want to be looking to buy. And there's a right time to buy in every place. And there's also a wrong time to buy in every place. Look, for instance, now gold, over $3,200 an ounce. I used to own it like 13 years ago or so, or maybe like 10 years ago when it was $1,000 an ounce, right? So that would have been a good decision to keep it. And I sold it. You know, I still have some, but I sold it. But technically, 200% over 10 years, much more than inflation cost me. That's a fact. Right?
Correct.
And the same is also true for real estate. You want to buy in an area where people are moving to. I think that's very important. But if it gets to a point where there's no more correlation between value and price, you have to say no. And there are a lot of places like that now where 10 years ago, it would have been a good buy. But now it no longer is because it's just so inflated. Everyone wants to live, I don't know where, you know?
And many people, I think, wrongly label this type of income as a passive income. It has nothing in common to be passive. You need to be really engage with local people. I mean, someone has to look after this apartment to keep the tenants, to keep everything good in shape. Tenants can move in, move out. They have some needs. So it is not a passive income. It's like a job. And having one apartment here, living abroad, it is pretty, from my perspective, cumbersome. Because you have to communicate with someone in Paraguay from abroad to maintain your property in a good shape, to keep tenants, and the income from this cooperation can be pretty small overall if you have to pay some other people to keep eye on your property.
It makes usually very little sense for just one property. If you want to do this approach part,
By time.
you have 3 to 5 minimum, right?
Yeah.
And then you can justify hiring a cleaner, you can justify working with a real estate agent, right? Because your margins are going to drop. But since you have multiple properties, you're going to have more profit. But just doing it for one, no. It's usually not a good investment. And you're probably going to make up for inflation because the value will increase a little bit. It's not going to increase 20 to 30% a year like a lot of people think, unless you're really buying in at the low of the market or when it's just starting to gain traction, which is not the case here, So we have to be honest about that. But I agree with you. If you are an entrepreneur and you're good at business, you see real estate as a store of value and as a way to preserve wealth, as a way to hedge against inflation. That's what it is, but it's not going to be the same income stream that your business generates. It's not going to be. You're not going to have the same margins. You're not going to have the same volume. But if you can at least keep up with inflation and you have the store value, I think that would be a good accomplishment.
Yeah, but there's also extra risk here because if you buy an apartment or property in general in Paraguay, you keep the value in Guarani. So now there's a risk, this exchange ratio. Yeah? So you can pay in Guarani only in Paraguay. So if you would like to withdraw this money to your country, the ratio between Guarani and your currency makes difference. So for example, we can see what happens with peso right now in Argentina, right? So what that they have quite low for their standards inflation right now, like 20%. Yeah, but so what if the fluctuation of the peso is from 1,000 to 1,400? Yeah, so the currency changes its value. So it's not only inflation, because inflation is within a country, but also the ratio between your home currency and the local currency of where you have a property. So it's another factor, the risk factor.
For sure. The only thing I would add here is that the Paraguayan warranty has one of the lowest inflation in whole Latin America, which is good. If you look at other countries, inflation is much higher. So here inflation is relatively acceptable. It's anywhere from 2 to 3.5%. So not bad. And the currency is quite stable, right? And it's been like this for many, many years.
I think it's fixed to US dollar. It might be because I exchanged dollars many times and it's always the same ratio. Maybe I was just, it was just a fluke, an accident, but for me it looks like a fixed ratio. I'm not sure. I cannot guarantee, but that's how
It's a more stable currency. So if you would invest in the Argentine peso and Argentine real estate, but real estate prices in Argentina also increase, right? Because there's more supply of money. So naturally, real estate prices increase as well, right? So even if you will have to convert your money from Paraguayan guarani to US dollars or euros in your case, you're still going to get more currency because it's still going to go up in local terms as well, if that makes sense. But in terms of inflation, at the moment, it's not a country I'd worry about.
Yeah.
There are many countries in the emerging world with much higher inflation than here. And hopefully it will stay like this. So
inflation is not a problem.
if you're interested in purchasing real estate in Paraguay or other countries, or you would like to get residency in Latin America, please book a consultation with me. Go to nomadelite.com and click on book a consultation. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you, Bart, for your time.
Thank you.
And your perspective. I appreciate it. And we look forward to seeing you on the next video.